So, where were you born?
I was born, well, everybody keeps saying they were born out here, but we were actually born in Green Bay at St. Vincent's. Uh, at that time, a lot of people stopped using midwives and started going into town and having kids there instead of out here all the time. So I kind of try and tell the truth. I could just say I was born out here too, but I wasn't.
What about you want to tell me about your parents, your family?
Well, my mom, she raised us on her own in Chicago, and we lived around here for years, and then we left here under the relocation program back in early 50s and that, and we ended up down in Chicago. So we kind of stayed and then come back here during summer months or spring, and a lot of times my sister stayed with our grandfather. So we were kind of back and forth in our younger years until we stayed probably, I would say about maybe the early 60s, mid 60s, we kind of stayed in Chicago around there more. And then through the years, as we got a little older, we started kind of going to powwows and leaving and traveling and going around the country. Went to Alcatraz after they took it over. We spent Christmas out on the island that first year in 69, 68 I think, 69. And, oh yeah, it was 69, come to think of it, yeah. Spent that Christmas out there. And it was kind of to me it was more of an experience living in Chicago, because I know a lot of people kind of down it or whatever and said we should have stayed out here. But I think it kind of helped us prepare for our life down the road when I look at it now, because of the diversity. But not only that, it was at a time where a lot of integration and the world was changing and all this stuff was just moving on. So it was kind of an exciting place to live at that time growing up. Other than just living out here, seeing between white and Indian, there was so many diversity of people down there, blacks, Mexicans, Hispanics, Appalachian whites, and different people, that I think it was a learning experience, and kind of helped me understand the world a little better as I got older and learn how to deal with the different people and different situations, because it was a kind of a fast moving pace down there during that time. Things just seemed like they invented something, then pretty soon that was gone, and next thing you know, something else was there. So it was kind of exciting, and just going to the school and seeing the difference between that and boarding school later in life, boarding. And to me, yeah, it didn't really prepare you, but it kind of taught you things if you could have learned and listened on how life goes and how to live, and a lot of situations you had to overcome and learn how to overcome them with different problems and solving and that. So I think it was kind of exciting. Maybe at the time we didn't think so, but when I look back now and look at where I'm at today, I look back on that and think of how, I guess I say, fortunate I was to live that time in that era around there.
And then you said you had siblings, yeah?
Yes.
Well, who can you name, like, your parents and your siblings for me?
Yeah, I have two older sisters, Donna Richmond, and another sister, Georgianne Kiana, or King Kiana. Our older brother, he just passed away here just Thanksgiving. And he was older than me, a couple of years older than that. And I kind of take it hard, because we did a lot of things together growing up in that period of time, and all the traveling we done and mischief we got into. So by the time we were 16, we were been across the country already. So I kind of miss that and think about him yet. It's still early, and a lot of times I was just talking to a cousin, and I said, the bad part is that when they pass suddenly like that during the holidays, it's harder than it would be if it was say afterwards in February, you have that period of time to kind of adjust and everything, but the holiday just wasn't the same. And my younger brother, a couple of years younger than me, that's the five of us.
Okay, and where did you go to school?
Mainly Chicago, to the public school system down there. And when I look back on it, it was different because there were so many different ethnic groups there. Nobody looked at color back then. And when I look back on it, the only way we got divided is once we finished elementary school and went into high school. And then that's when I noticed things started changing. And people started dividing in the groups, the blacks, the Mexicans, the Asians. Everybody had their own little group then. And that's where I kind of started learning about the different ethnic groups and how each one was characterized, I guess you could say. And there wasn't that many Indians going to school in Chicago at that time, and in that period. In the high school of over 5,000 students, there was probably maybe 10 or 12 Indians going to that high school. So it was a big challenge there too. Because to me, it seemed like I had to fight my way through school. And 3 months before graduation, I ended up quitting. Had to make that choice of either going to school and possibly getting killed or injured or dropping out. My mom wanted me to drop out because she felt, I think, well, she didn't want to bury me. So instead we went down to Indian school in Santa Fe. But I didn't finish there either.
Do you remember the names of the schools at all?
Which ones?
Chicago or the schools?
Oh, the grade schools we were kind of pushed around because they were, at that time, they were diversifying the areas. So in an area where we could have walked to school for high school, we had to catch a bus and go about 4 miles away from our home. When there was a school, we could have walked to a high school. And that's where a lot of our friends went to. And we had to go to this other school because they were diversifying in that. Grade school, they were shifting a lot of the schools, so geez, I had to at least attend 7 or 8 of those schools through the years of elementary. Because the way the people were moving around in Chicago at that time, they were trying to diversify neighborhoods and intermix them and everything. And that's why I say, at the time it was kind of exciting, but it was kind of a learning thing too. So.
What pushed you to join the military?
I wasn't so much pushed. I thought about it before, because a lot of guys before me that were older were going into the service during that time. And it was because I'd watch. And at that time, at the Indian Center in Chicago, they'd have not celebrations, but honorings for them. And a lot of the diversity there was learning different tribes at the Indian Center from all over the country. Because under the relocation and education program, these tribes came from all over the country. And I learned a lot from them, from different tribes and everything. And through that, it was kind of a different learning, again, opportunity, I guess you could say, and understanding what other tribes were other than our own. Because here, at that time, there wasn't no powwows or anything. It was more Christianity in Oneida. And I know coming back here at times, our own cousins used to call us heathens and that, because we tell them we go to the Indian Center in Chicago and we were dancing, and as we got older, going to powwows. And they're like, that's kind of odd, or not odd, but to them it wasn't big Episcopal, Lutheran, Methodist. And so there was a big difference there. And listening to the old guys talk about Korea and World War II. And I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, you know, but that'd be nice seeing those movies back then and having those medals and uniform and having women hang on you and stuff like that. So it was kind of that image I thought about. And then listening to the old things about being a warrior and all this and that. But watching them go, and then all of a sudden they'd be back home. And they would disappear again and stuff like that. And by then Vietnam started, and I didn't know where that was. I remember I was in grade school when it started, and thought it would be over in no time. And as I got older, I ended up getting a job, and I was working in the police department. But I didn't know I had a deferment because I was a public servant. And I got in a little hassle with them, and they suspended me for 30 days without pay, and I got mad, and they went drinking, and ended up sitting next to some recruiters from the Army, and that's how I ended up in the Army, not knowing. But overall, I think, it wasn't bad. My first choice would have been the Navy or the Air Force for the education, because I think they had better opportunities for education-wise, and that. So that was my first choice, but it just didn't work out that way.
All right, so what about basic training? Where was it?
Oh man, that was that was a shocker. But when I listed, I was in Chicago, and it was like 10 degrees, 15 degrees out. I ended up going down to Fort Polk, Louisiana at 4:30 in the morning, getting off the bus or the airplane in Shreveport, and walking out of the airport, air conditioned, and then having that humidity hit you. It was like, oh my God. And that's where I ended up basic in Fort Polk, Louisiana, in the swamps, and it was hot, and that. And it was a shocker, because it's right off the bat there, there's yelling and screaming and all that. And I don't think a lot of guys are prepared. They're not prepared for that. But before that, it's like, I always thought of it as machoism that we grew up in that time of the 50s and 60s. When you're young, you're only 5 years old or 6, and you fall down and you get hurt, and you start to cry, and that. And then all of a sudden, one of your dad or a male voice, an uncle, somebody, a male voice suddenly tells you, hey, you're a man, suck it up. And I think that's where it kind of starts, where you start learning to hide your emotions as a male, because you're supposed to be tough, and that image back then was all that. And as you go through life, you're learning that through school. You on the playgrounds, somebody gets in a fight, and one guy starts to cry, all the kids start teasing them and calling them crybaby or mama's boy, and in your mind you're thinking that, no, that ain't gonna happen to me. So when you get in the service, it's pretty instilled in you that if you show emotions during combat, or if you're into that and you show emotion or you have feelings, you're going to get others killed. And so that's where it's really instilled, where they push it on you. And I've seen guys in basic that were there, and I've seen a couple of them actually cry and break down when we had to take a rabbit, break its neck, and skin it to survive, to eat. They couldn't do it. They started crying, and they disappeared. Different things. Guys would disappear, and then you wouldn't see them for certain trainings and periods. And I often wondered about that, what happened to them. It took me years to figure that out. But it was a shock to see the guy yelling at you, talking about guys that had girlfriends or wives, the way they talk to you, your skin, whatever, what ethnic group you are, your mom, nothing was off limits. You know, at that time they punched you, you know, slapped you, and talked about your religion or whatever they wanted to do. It was wide open. So it wasn't funny at the time, but it's funny now when I look back on it, some of the things, on what you put up with and what you had to go through. But through the years, in the end, I look back on that, and what they're doing is they're actually trying to break you, to see mentally how tough you are, how strong are you mentally. Anybody will get you in shape physically, but mentally, how much can you take? How much of the stupidity and the anger and all that in you can they drive out of you? So when you go into combat, they want to actually see what you can do, how you can handle that. Because what I've learned is through those years of saying a warrior and a serviceman, and you know, you're all this and that from World War II in Korea, and the movies, and then when you're actually there, and as you grew up, you always heard, in the glory of battle. Well, in reality, there's nothing glorious about battle. It's horrific. You know, and nothing will ever prepare anybody for what you see and what you hear and the smells. Those things are what sticks to you. Those are hard to deal with. The voices, the screaming, you know, the calling out for mom, you know, the crying, the things of that, and you know they're dying, and there isn't nothing you can do, and you wish you could. And they teach you all that stuff in the basic and get you ready, but they never teach you how to deal with it afterwards. And that's the hard part after, to live with yourself afterwards, the guilt and the anger. How do you deal with that? You know, how do you deal with it? Really, nobody's there to teach you. So your life changes again.
You said it was down in Louisiana. How long was the training?
It was supposed to be 8 weeks. It turned out they were running a test, and I ended up going for 13 weeks out there in the hot sun of the swamps and the heat. And we didn't get to walk anywhere. We ended up running mostly because our drill sergeants at the time were Green Beret Special Forces trainers, and they didn't want you to get on a bus and ride out to the rifle range. They expected you to run. And you had your full pack, which is probably maybe anywhere, depends on which one they choose that day. It could be 30 pounds, it could be 80 pounds. And you're full dressed in combat boots and weapon, and you gotta go, 3-4 miles. Don't sound like it's a long ways, but really it isn't. But when you're carrying that, and you're running through the swamps and the hills and everything, it's really hard. And you wonder what you got yourself into. And I think a lot of that comes down to where you think, I want to go home. I didn't think it was going to be like this. Because I started out with 400 guys in our company, and after the 13 weeks were over, there was 87 of us left, and there was only 2 barracks that we lived in out of 5 barracks. So you kind of think of that, and how does that prepare you? And I'm surprised I made it, because I didn't think I would. Because I didn't tell anybody when I went into service. I didn't tell my mom, my family, anybody. I just up and left one day. And my mom was used to it by then. She knew within a month or 2 we'd get a hold of her, or send her a letter to let her know her somewhere. So she didn't know until she got the picture of me in the uniform that they send them home. And she realized where I was, which put her through some more things, because my older brother did the same thing. he didn't tell us either when he went in until she got the picture of him in the uniform. So, kind of a double whammy there for her.
What was your specialty, your job?
I went in as a computer operator, and I touched a computer once. And I ended up going in the infantry, then airborne, and then I ended up going going to Vietnam. And then over there, at that time, I think they were kind of winding down in 71 and that, 72. And I know that at that time, one of my buddies, another guy I met in the service, and we ended up hanging together and everything. He was a mission Indian from California and Mexican. And we just hung out together, I don't know why. And we got into trouble together. And he come and he asked me about volunteering because they were asking for rangers. And I'm like, no, I'm not volunteering. You don't raise your hand in the service. You don't volunteer for nothing, because that always leads to something more. And he said they were looking for rangers, and if we got it, we could come back here to the States. And by the time we get done with the schooling, the war will be over, because the Paris peace talks were going good, and they were saying the war will be over probably, before the end of the year. And I was hungover, and the more I thought about it, and the heat over there, it was hot, hungover, it wasn't too good. The more I thought about it, the better it sounded. And like he said, we're home, we made it, and we're alive. And that was the main thing, get home alive. And so I thought, okay, we'll go do it. So I did. Here, they put us on the helicopter, sent us about 200-300 miles south of where we were at, along the China Sea. We took a physical test, a mental test, trained with the Rangers, and then we went on 3 missions with the actual Rangers, and if you survive, you're a Ranger. I blew it again. So I never did make it home like I thought I would. So after that I was in the Rangers, which I didn't want to be either. I just wanted to come home. But then when I was here, I wanted to be there. When I was there, I wanted to be here. And it was true. I know they did that in some movie, but that was true. A lot of guys, we felt safer over there than we did here. And we wanted to be back there. And when we were there, we wanted to be here. It was a crazy kind of thing.
Did you make any friends while you were there?
Yeah, you can't help it. When we grew up, we listened to the old guys, and they always said, when in World War II in Korea, don't make friends, because if they die, you're not close. But there is no way around it. You have to. You got to depend on each other. And that's what they're looking at. They're looking at you to be a part of a team, not an individual. It's called the U.S. Army, Marines, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, because you're a team. You're not an individual. And you look out for each other. And that's where they come out with those terms, band of brothers and all of this stuff and that. Because you get so close. And you meet the guys, and you meet the family without even actually meeting them. You know about their family. You know the brothers, you know the sisters, you know all the stories on what you talk about. And there's no way around it. You try, but it's not going to work. And so, yeah, when you're at a time of war and you lose a friend, well, actually, you'd say your brother, because that's what you feel like. And that, and it's hard. It's hard to break away from that. So you do meet your friends, well, you might as well say family, because that's what it comes down to when you know the guy's sister, his aunt, the uncles and all that, you know the family. It's just like knowing your own family. So yeah, you meet your friends.
What did you, in training, what would you do for fun?
Training,
While you were like, at your like base training, what were things that you, would do for fun?
there was no fun in basic training. It was all training. It's afterwards. That's where you did stuff. And, like I can now, now when we had monsoon season during the rains, we'd have a football game and it'd be about maybe 30, 40 guys on each team, and the field goal posts were maybe a mile or half a mile long. But you're playing in ankle deep mud in the rain, sliding for 20 yards or something. Yeah, they did things like that, and then you'd find other things to do. It wasn't always, I always say the military doesn't have a sense of humor like they should. And a lot of times you think out of the box. So yeah, you can get in trouble, and they can make it hard on you if you want to try it. But a lot of the stuff was more mischievous. You know, like borrowing the colonel's Jeep and make a beer run and wrecking the Jeep. Playing cards all night, or you can't throw in your sister for anything. You gotta have cash. Things like that, or hockey or shoes or something like that, or a watch. You just invented things like that, and did things to, basically during the war, to keep your mind from insanity. Because that's what it is. It's insanity when you're in a situation, combat, and things are happening so fast. Things are screaming, yelling. You gotta keep your mind together and know where everything is. It's just organized chaos. You can watch the movies, see the movies, and that's nothing to what it's like. Because at least they're filming and they're planning their things. When you're in it, it's nothing like that. Nothing like the movies at all. A lot of guys, we really don't talk too much about what we've done. We talk about the good times. Like when we were in Bangkok and we seen that, I don't know what they call them, big monkey, orangutan, beat a guy up, in a bar. We talk about things like that, or, when we went on R&R to the Philippines and got drunk and ended up eating what we thought was breadsticks, but they were deep fried maggots with them and that. We talk about things like that, stuff like that, and we don't go into battles or death and all that. We like to think of the good times and the people and the guys we hung out with and we met and that.
So from Louisiana, you went to Vietnam, is that right?
Well, I was in the States here training a lot.
Yeah, okay.
So then right after my training, my last training in that, we drew Vietnam, Garcia and I. I don't know how we did that. Maybe they didn't, like I say, they didn't have a sense of humor. But we drew it, and I told them that they have to take me now because you usually got 30-day leave after you going to Vietnam. To me, that's like go home and say goodbye to your family because you may not come back alive. You may not make it. If I went home, I don't think I'm coming back. I don't think I want to go to Vietnam. So it's, yeah, it's, what do you do? So they told me, well, we'll restrict you to base. But I can walk out that gate, the guard ain't gonna stop me, and I ain't coming back. Uh, So they had talked it over and they shipped me to Fort Lewis, Washington, then up to Alaska. And then I stayed there for a few weeks and that. And the rest of some guys caught up to me, Garcia caught up to me, and we went on into Japan and then down to Vietnam. Because I know if I went home or came home, I doubt if I wanted to come back in.
What were your first impressions when you got there?
Oh, man, it was hot. And when we landed in Pleiku, you could hear the bullets hitting the side of the plane. We didn't know what that was. We were laughing because we thought the plane was falling apart. And Sergeant said, no, those are bullets because we're making another run. And the plane had to come in and go over the runway and then come back 3 times. And on the last time they come down, they said they're making a rolling stop. And you grab your bags, they'll throw them out, throw your bags out, and then they'll come back around, then you come down, they open the door, then you jump. Well, the plane's rolling down the runway. And you gotta get your head together, look for a building with orange tape or whatever, anyway, the orange painting around it, and you run for that. Because they were getting rocketed or shot at. The airport was under fire. And when they open the door, it's like sticking your face in an oven. Can't breathe, gotta run. You wonder if you're gonna make it, because they're shooting. You could see the bullets hitting the ground. And you're just wondering, what am I doing? What am I doing here? Then from there, we processed through, spent the night. Next day I got up, they put me on a helicopter and said I was going to the 173rd Airborne. I never heard of them. So I flew out, went there, got off the chopper, put my bags down. They gave me some gear, helmet and everything, and said we're going out on night ambush. I just got here. I don't know nothing. Because what they teach you back in basic and all that they didn't, it's nothing. And that night, it was like there was that ambush, and I remember I didn't know what to do. I was scared, and I threw my weapon down, and I was trying to dig a hole with my fingers, trying to hide. Because the next day, I was standing there and I was looking around. I was saying, what am I doing here? These guys are trying to kill me. No, I want to go home. And it's like, why did I do this? What did I get myself into? And I didn't have no time to adjust. Like other guys I heard, they went and then they had 2 weeks to adjust to the heat, to the surroundings, to be under fire because they're on the base, things like that. I didn't know nothing. It's like 1 minute I'm there and then boom, you're out there and you're getting shot at. And it's not no game anymore. It's not training, it's real bullets, and these guys are going to try and kill you. And I don't want to die. And all of a sudden, I start thinking, actually you start thinking about your life. What am I here? I don't want those medals, hell with them. I don't need those women. I want to live. And then I think within the next week or so, after I went out a few times, and I'm like still kind of scared. Well, I was scared all the time, but more so when I first got there. And I was thinking, like, what am I doing? We're doing to these people what people did to us 400 years ago. And here I am wearing this uniform, doing the same thing they did to us. And I just thought, well, I just want to survive and I want to go home. And I think that's where your mind changed to where I don't really want to kill people. I want to just go home. But I'm going to survive. I got to survive. So that kind of kicked in on me and made my choice that I'm going to go home. I'm going to go home alive, I hope. And I hope I have my body parts with me when I do go. So your whole mindset changes. For me it did. Other guys, I don't know. Other vets I've talked to, it's hard because, to me, I think we have to be truthful to ourselves. Because if you weren't scared, then you were probably dead, or you were going to die in there. Because I think that's what kept you alive, was being scared. And that all the time. There wasn't no free zone where you could go and relax and not think about the war. So you just had to admit to yourself, that, yeah, I'm scared. That patriotism and all that. It's not easy. Because when I came and I look back and I think, where does it say in our way that we go out and kill somebody that never did nothing to us? I know in our own tradition here, it doesn't say that. In the Bible, I've seen the Bible, and Catholic, Episcopal, Lutherans, 10 Commandments, they shall not kill. It doesn't say thou shalt not kill unless there's war. It just says thou shalt not kill. So you go through a lot of those things. And a lot of your thinking is, for me, was the first one I did, and you think about it, I could probably draw his face. And today, his daughter is probably around 52, and his son is probably around 48. Because I seen a picture when I went and checked him. And I thought, what did I do? Saying what it's like, I guess. He didn't do nothing to me. He's fighting for his country, the same we were 400 years ago. I just took away somebody's father, somebody's husband, somebody's son. But you gotta clear your mind from that. Because you want to live too. You just gotta clear your mind and put all those images away where, oh, you're a man and you're a warrior and all this. It bothers you. It's not nice. Well, how do you live with it? They don't teach you that. They didn't take away your conscience. You might have stuffed your feelings, but you still have them. And that's what they were teaching you. You can't do that. Because if you do, now you may get somebody killed.
Let me see here. What was your daily life like while you were in Vietnam?
Besides trying to survive, usually just drink. Wish you were home. Walk around the base, make sure your weapons are clean and everything's firing. That was your protector, if you really needed it. Like I say, it was more or less just drinking and smoking and partying until you went out on patrol or you went on a mission. That's the way it was, and you were scared. When you went to R&R, you tried to get out of the country, but still, it was still there. It was still on your mind, whether you were in Bangkok, Philippines, Japan, Korea. It was always there.
Were there any people or memorable experiences that happened while you were there?
Well, like I say, the guys that you were with. I think I got lucky because the guys, we were all the same in my team. after I was a ranger, there was only 12 of us in my team. So the 12 guys, we'd live and work and travel together, do everything together. And each one of us had our own specialty. So, and I was the sergeant, so it was your family, and that's what you protected, and that's what you did. So, yeah, when you're in that small of a group, instead of a company or a platoon, a platoon is 40-something guys. But when you're only 12, you're pretty close together with each other.
What were the living conditions like? What, yeah, how did you?
Not the Holiday Inn, that's for sure. It was hot, dusty, dirty. It was miserable. During the day it could get up to 120 degrees, and then at night you're shivering because it would drop down to 60 or something. And then if it was mist or fog, it would be colder yet. It actually felt like it was really cold. The bugs, mosquitoes, it was just constantly something, that you had to you try and ignore or get over or something. And then the humidity, it's sticky, it's like you're always wet. During the rain, and then, it was days on end that it would just rain. It never stopped sometimes. Sometimes when it did, then it was all right. Then you learn to say, well, I wish it would rain. Why? Because nobody's fighting. They're not moving, we're not moving. Everything's soaked to the ground, so you can't move equipment, so hey, yeah. So you learn to kind of look at the rain in different too. And there was, like I say, there's all kinds of things to adjust to and think about and learn. Because even though your one tour could be anywhere from a year on, you learn to take things here not for granted. You learn to appreciate a shower. You learn to like the sound of a toilet flushing. Here, we don't mind it. But actually, when you got back, it was that sound. Little things like that. Really, I think you learn to appreciate. You learn to appreciate life. And you learn that you need to live. But still, you had those memories, and you try and, you do the good ones. You try and rid the bad, but they're not going away. You just learn how to live with it. They're going to be there for life. But you just learn how to adjust and live with it.
What was your contact like with home? Did you?
I didn't come home right away.
No, but did you write letters or?
No. I didn't contact anybody. I would, because they would watch, and they would see if you got mail. So they expected you to get at least one letter a month from home. And if you didn't, they wanted to know why. Are you writing home? Well, they'd make you sit down and write a letter, and then they'd mail it. And I didn't want to do that, so guys, I'd find somebody going back to the world, well, we call it the world, but coming back to the country, back to the States, and I put my address and stamp on it and everything, and tell them when you get to San Francisco or wherever you're from, mail this letter back to me. And it would just be empty papers. So that way it kept them off of me. And because I didn't want to know what was going on here. I didn't want my mind to wander off, what was happening back here. Because I thought if I did, it could cost your life or somebody else's. Because I seen guys there, what they call Dear John. You heard those letters? And that was part of it. Being a sergeant was watching the mail call and watching guys get letters and watching how they react after they got the letter. And so I go up and talk to them, and as we're walking, I take away their weapons. Things like that you had to watch for, and I didn't want that. So I didn't contact my mom, didn't know I was there. She just knew I was in the service. And you got a call every now and then if you got down to a phone. Like if we went into Plouquet or something, that was the big city, it was probably about 200 miles away from us. But we'd go in there sometimes and we could jump on the phone to call home. And that's what I do, I call them once in a while. If I got in there and then, or if I was on R&R in the Philippines or somewhere, I could grab a phone and call them and say, hey, I'm all right. And there's ways you come up with different things to do.
So, let's see. Did you experience combat while you were in the service?
Yeah, it's, like I say, it doesn't prepare you for it. And, it's just, it's not easy. And that's why sometimes I don't really. I talk to my older brother, but he's gone now. And some of the guys here will, veteran to veteran, will talk a little bit, but we know that we don't talk the whole thing, or really we just say, yeah, we were in, a situation and we were outnumbered and we ran and got out of there. But there's more to it than that. To me, that stays with me, because there's things there that we keep to ourselves. But it's not easy. That's why I keep telling people, you can see the movies and all that, but they don't really get into what it's mentally, what it does to you. And you see guys around here, and a lot of us, I think, when we come home, we put on a show. But we don't really go into what to us inside. And people don't understand that. There's guys around here who've been in, probably just as bad or more than I had been. And I know who they are and that, and they know. And we don't have to say too much to each other. I'll sit and I sometimes just need to sit and listen. But for us, it's talking to another person that understands and knows why you're not saying certain things, and that. And so, for somebody to sit down and talk to other people like yourself, for me to go into something like that, you wouldn't really get the full impact or understand what it is, because you haven't done it, you haven't lived it. And that's what it's really hard about it. There's guys that go into service, but they never went to combat, and they feel bad, and I tell them, don't feel bad. Yeah, you would have gone had you been given the orders, but I would trade places with them in a second. Because even here, people ask me, how come when you do a feather or you do a ceremony, you don't say you're a warrior? I say, I'm not. And they're like, why not? You are. I said, that's in your eyes. I said, anybody can pick up a gun and shoot it. That's easy. I said, but we have to understand who we are and our people here on who we are. And it goes back to that same thing what I said in the beginning. The clan mothers, in our way, never told us to go to Vietnam and kill people that didn't do nothing to us. So when I signed my name and went, and the guys here that went, because we were stuck into that old image, not listening to our tradition, our ways, we went over there and did those things to those guys. So I tell them what we go through, our drinking, our jail, all this stuff, we brought on ourselves. That misery we asked for that. Because to me, for me, I said, I violated our own great law. Because our great law says we don't go, and only the clan mothers are the ones who tell us to go defend our people, because we're under attack. And the Vietnamese never attacked us. So why would I go over there and kill somebody that never hurt my family, never hurt our people? I was supposed to stay here and help our people back then, because that was during the Indian movement years. So I should have been here, not over there. And so I said, so now that's why we have to live with the way we came back as. And to go through those things that we went through even back here, our mentality and everything is what we asked for. Because we didn't follow our own ways, we were losing them, or we had lost them then. So to me, I tell people, there's warriors here. But a warrior is somebody who comes around us and helps our people, man or a woman. I said, or a kid. I said, what we lost around here is I don't see guys going around like we used to. And we used to go around and get wood for the elders that still had the stoves. You know, nobody has stoves hardly anymore. But, you know, we used to go around and paint somebody's garage or help them build their garage. You know, now, nobody does that. To me, that they go and they do things, and they don't look for a handout or a pat on the back. There's people in this community that do things people don't know, because they don't ask for that recognition. They don't look for that pat on the back to say, you know, we're not in the dolly wee socks every time we do something. That's not what it's about. The warrior's the one that stays and helps his people, takes care of his people, not go and do that over there. So that's something that I've come up with years after I came back. Took me a long time, but that's what for me, that's the way I believe is what it is about.
Did you ever experience any close calls in combat at all?
Yes. You know, there's one guy up here, Menominee. We were talking, we got to know each other several years. He'd come down here and we'd go visit my mom when she was alive, and we'd sit around and talk. And I forgot what I did. I was going to do something, and he started talking. He was in the Navy, and he was talking about going after this Indian guy, and my mom looked at him and said, well, wait a minute. She called me in, and she said, go ahead. She said, tell him that story. And he started talking, looking into him. I said, well, what year was that? You know, he said, well, that was around 73, 72, 73. I said, really? And he said, yeah. He said, we were on a Navy ship, and they get a day off, I guess, on the Navy ship. I don't know. But he said he was in his bunk laying down, and they came and got him, and they had to go. They were going in country. I mean, going into Vietnam. They were off the shore, but to step on land, they go in country. And he was talking about they had to go get these guys because they were in trouble, and the VC were closing in on them, and they were getting near the beach, and one was was wounded, and there's two of them. Well, you had to get them out of there. So they said they got up, and he asked why, and they said, you don't ask, just go do it. And they were trying to ask, well, what did they do? And they wouldn't tell them. They said, go get in there and go do it. So follow orders. And here, I was looking at him, and I said, oh. I said, did that guy, I said, when you picked up, did he ask you about 3 bears? And he looked at me and he said, yeah. I said, that was me. He's Menominee now. And he come to get us off the shore of Vietnam. And then years later, that's how we ran into each other. So that's been, what, 30 years now since we come across that story. That he come in, he was one of the ones that come in. I said, yeah, I was shooting morphine to ease the pain, so I was kind of out of it. And I remember telling a joke about 3 bears, and I remember him asking me if I was tribal, and I said, yeah. And they put me on the ship, and then they sent me to Japan. So I said, that's where I ended up, and he ended up, but he said he thought about that, you know, picking up a guy, and that's how he got his ribbon for being in country, coming in there to get us, me and my partner out. Because we were surrounded, and we were sent up on a mission, out on a mission. And I don't know, at the time I thought this is just something went wrong, because they said the enemy was coming from this way, that way, and it's like we were almost getting boxed in. And I had a couple guys wounded, and one guy I carried for 4 miles, I think, 3 miles. A friend of mine, Donald Duck, we call him, but the name of Donald Mercer from Nebraska, and I carried him like 3 miles because he was wounded. And we were running, and they were right on our tail. And we put him on one helicopter come around. That's why you always hear that noise. I can hear that noise for miles before anybody. But you're always listening for that because they were your savior. And I heard that. So here come that chopper, and they come back around, and they come down. And they laid rounds down to hold them back, and they come down, and we threw the wounded on, and I got my guys on, except for myself and another guy, and that. And because the chopper can only carry so much weight, and with us 2 on there, it had been over. And so I told them, well, give us some ammo, give us some grenades, and we'll make a beeline, we'll run. 2 of us are better than 12 of us together, and we could hide out better. And they took off, and they were chasing. I could see the bullets hitting in front of us, and then I was heading for a tree line cover, and we were just shooting back. We didn't even look, just aimed backwards. And I could see that chopper taking off, and I wonder why he's coming back around. So when I look back, he drops a ladder. And so when you're trained, when that ladder comes down, you jump on it and you separate. And so you pick up this guy and then take off up higher, and then you pick up the next guy. But you lock your leg in to the ladder in case you get hit and you get wounded and you fall, your leg's locked in and you won't fall to the ground. And so that's what we did. And all of a sudden I just seen where we run into the jungle, the chopper was trying real hard to lift up. And I thought we were going to crash and die in the trees. And he just barely made it over the treetop. So they took us away from that area and dropped us. And then they and Boatman, took us like almost a week to get to where to find cover. Because at night, you hear noise, but you don't want to do nothing because you don't know if it's the Vietcong or not. You didn't know if they were Americans or not, so we just stayed undercover and just ate what we could when we could. And in the meantime, I didn't know, but I got hit in the side and it was getting infected. So that's why they had to come and get us, because we were trying to get out of there.
So let's talk about the end of your service now. When you got discharged from the military, how did you feel, and how did you find out?
I got processed out of California, out of Treasure Island, which was a Navy base, and I'm wondering why we were processing. Because they said, well, Fort Lewis, Fort Ord, and all them were all packed, and we were kind of like overflow. So one minute we were in the jungle, and that shooting, and then we were back on the base, and then they come and got us, and I think it was like 14, 15 hours later we were in downtown Oakland eating Burger King from the jungle to there, less than 24 hours. We were sitting there wondering what's going on. And at that time we seen a lot of the change here. Because we couldn't get a hotel room. Nobody would rent us a hotel. Holiday Inn, they didn't want us there. People on the street walked around us, and it was funny, just odd, because we didn't know what it was like back here, and so after I got out that time, I was out for maybe 5-6 months, and I couldn't adjust, or I didn't like it. And I wanted to go back, so I re-enlisted again. And I felt safer. And that's when they asked the second time, they asked for volunteers. Because I went down to Venezuela first, and then I went, because I'd gotten a rapid deployment unit. And then when they asked for volunteers, if we go back to Vietnam, yeah. So I went back again. And I knew a little bit more now what this country was doing then. And hearing different guys coming in saying how bad it was and how bad the guys were getting treated. And I don't know, it just felt comfortable around all the guys there. And then when I did get back, I went my second time I went, we were on a base, and we had a lot of ARVNs, which are Republic of Vietnam soldiers. And they come in and they took us on a chopper and said, we're going into a meeting. And I was like, okay, so I jumped on. But then I was wondering, well, how come the Vietnamese captain isn't with us and their officers? They said, they're evacuating. And I'm like, what? They said they're evacuating, and as we took off, we could see the North Vietnamese coming down the road. So that started the evacuation, so I was part of that. Then I got back here, I was court-martialed. And so they sent me back to the States. And I was court-martialed disobeying orders because during the evacuation, you're only supposed to bring in U.S. equipment or U.S. personnel to the ship. Well, on our second, third run in, that's when they started holding our helicopter down. We had to knock them off. And they started throwing kids at us, babies and kids. So we kept them. And we took them back to the ship, so we did that a couple of trips, like several trips. And so I was court-martialed for disobeying orders, because we didn't throw them back. No, I couldn't. So I was at Presidio, San Francisco, and they told me since I had a kind of a semi-decent record before and everything, and that they would take my rank. They asked me if I would take an honorable discharge. So better than going to Leavenworth. So I said, yeah. So they said, okay, we'll take a couple weeks to get your paperwork. So they released me from the brig, and I went down to the NCO club and started drinking. I got a 12-pack and went out there and sat by the bay, and just thinking what happened. I looked at the medals that I had that they had given me, took them off and threw them in the bay. And 5, 10, I don't know how long. Next thing I know, there's somebody standing behind me, and I turn around, there's MPs, military police, and they arrested me for destroying government property, because all those guys in the NCO club, they got a big picture when they'll see me throw those medals in the ocean. The bay, so I was arrested again. So I got discharged out. And they told me when you go to the airport, don't wear your uniform, go in and change. I'm like, no, man, I put up a lot, and I'm gonna wear this. And I found out why. 'Cause nobody wanted to sit by me on the airplane. They asked for different seats. And when I got to Chicago, cabs wouldn't pick me up at the O'Hare airport. They'd drive around me. They wouldn't pick me up. People would blow their horns at me or throw things. Like, just different. But I made it home when I changed my uniform.
What did you do for work afterwards?
I didn't. I just started bumming. I started drifting around the country. I don't know. I was just lost, I guess. I don't know. I didn't like who I was. I don't think. I wanted to be around people. And I just started drifting. Drinking and ended up in jail in different places. I did that for a couple of years, several years. And one day it just happened to be in Minnesota in I thought it was some hick town, and there was I remember I was sitting there and I think I had enough for toast and coffee. There was two sheriffs sitting there. That one kept looking at me, and finally he got up and come walking over, and I thought, oh man. And he sat down and asked me what I was doing, and told him, well, just passing through town, nothing. Here he turns out he was Apache, and he was a counselor at college, Rochester College, State College. Asked me if I would go to college and use my GI Bill and all this and that. And I figured, well, I was getting near winter. It's going to get cold out. I'm up here in Minnesota, not north, southern, so maybe I should take a break from the road. So that's what I did. And then during that time, I ended up getting a job at IBM. IBM was out there, so went out there and got a job manufacturing. I figured, well, I'll work here for a little while, then move on. And I ended up staying there for maybe 20 years. Then after that, IBM was falling apart or downsizing, and I was going to lose a job anyway, so I came back home here and ended up working here for the last 27 years.
Let's see here. What have you stayed in contact with anyone in the military? No.
No, all the guys I served with, total of 27, they're all gone. I lost 2 guys were killed under my watch, and six were probably wounded. And the rest, we all came home, except for those 2 that I lost. And all of them died here within the first 15 years we were home. And I'm still here.
Have you ever gone to any reunions?
Yeah, I tried one. It didn't go well, so I just told them I'm just not coming back around. Guys call me. Well, they're different. They're from a different company or a different platoon, but I know who they are. But they're not like the guys I was with. And once in a while they'll contact me, a guy from South Dakota or Minnesota or somewhere. Some guys never change, and I just don't want it no more.
Okay, so the last part is just a bit of reflection. The questions that I have are just like, what surprised you about your experience? How do you feel about it?
Well, I guess I don't really regret it. Because although I thought of the Air Force and the Navy and that, and ended up in the Army, I don't really regret doing that. because of the guys that I was with. And now I look back and say, yeah, it was a learning. Because like now, it taught me a lot without you really realizing it until I look back and reflect, about life and value and not take things for granted. To have a pair of shoes and, have a roof over your head, things like that. Those I think a lot of us take for granted, a lot of people here take for granted, being able to eat when you want, things like that. And a lot of the little things, because now, I tell people, I look at a little baby and then watch them struggle to pick up Cheerios. Listen to them. I said, I hear their voice trying to speak. Things like that, I said, I think I'm more aware of and what's surrounding and appreciate what's out there. Everybody says, oh, I hate winter. Do you? I don't. I've been in the hot sun and beaten down on you, so yeah, you kind of appreciate the chill in the four seasons, because I miss it. Because all my time in the service, I was in the tropics. And I actually miss the cold and the winter and the seasons. I miss hearing the sound of a toilet flush. When I got out, I stood in the shower for 40 minutes, letting that water run on me. I didn't even take my uniform off. Shoes and everything underneath the shower for 40 minutes, just feeling the water run on me. Things like that. To hear water running, to hear people talk, things like that. Geez, there's a light bulb, things like that. People think that it was crazy because you think that way. But I think it's because you live without it once. And yeah, maybe a year don't sound like it, but it is a long time, and it did feel like a lifetime. And I don't regret it. I think I enjoyed it, I think I learned. And what I do now, I travel and I share my thoughts, my life. And if it helps somebody, which it has, I understand, it'll be good. Because yeah, all the guys that I know that are vets, we all got married and we're all divorced. And I'm like, why? Well, I thought of that too, and I know why. And different things, just like I said before, to all these guys, where does it say in the Bible or anywhere that you can't hold your wife's hand when you're 50 years old or when you're 30 years old, 35? You can't walk down the street with your arm around your wife. Where does it say you can't do that? Is there a law? Where is it? And they're like, well, there isn't. I said, yeah. Well, why do we stop? What do you do with your wedding picture? Where are they? I don't know, they're probably up there somewhere in the storage. Did you ever go look at them? Pull them out and look back on that? And say, hey, why were we standing up there getting married? Why did we get married? Why this? That's what society told us, oh, the honeymoon's over, 7-year itch, all this other stuff. Oh, you're married now, so you don't have to hold hands. When did that stop? It's work. It's true, that's what you came together for. But society tells us, oh, we can't do that. I'm saying, hey, to me, life's short. It just seems like not that long ago that I left there. But now, somebody just told me, man, it's been over 40, 50 years. My brother and I were sitting there, and he was there before I was. And I can't believe it's been over 50 years since we were there. And now he's gone. It's like, wow, where did that go? And where did it? And then now, So a guy called me and says, yeah. He said, I looked at, we found our wedding album. He said, we've been married over 40 years. We went through it and looked. He said, now we're going on a date. He said, now? He said, we're gonna redo our wedding vows. He said, we're gonna do that. He said, and we're gonna go on a date and everything. And he said, he still had his car from the 50s. He said, we're gonna take a ride. And we're gonna go up in the mountains. We're gonna jump in the back seat. And I said, okay, that's all I need to know. But he said, yeah, it was true. He said, why did we? I said, that's what I learned from that life. I sit at home and I think about that. What did I learn during this time and during that time? And kind of reflect on it. And before my mom died, she said, that's what the old people used to do. He said, everybody thinks, oh, they're praying to give thanks. They give thanks for the day. But she said at night, she said, they give thanks for that day, but then there's something there in that day that you learned that you never knew before. You just got to think of it as something very simple. It's not hard. But there's things there that we learned every day. And then she said in our culture, she said, from the day you're born is you start dying. Because your days are numbered. She said, that's where that comes from the tribal people. Your days are numbered. And whenever he wants you, when you're done here, fulfilling your time, then it's time to go. So just like my brother, just that sudden, just before Thanksgiving, he's here and then boom, he's gone. Well, he did his time. Now we gotta let him go. We gotta let him go and have his journey the rest of the way now. Now he's with my mom and uncles and all of them now. And he fulfilled what he needed to do here. We can't, and I tell him, I said, we don't mourn and hang on to it because that stops them from going. But you gotta learn to let that go too, so they can go on. So that's what we have to do. So yeah, I had my time. That's that 10 days that they talk about. It's not that fire that they keep. Some keep it for 10, some for 4. But those are your days that you have that period to where, yeah, it's okay to mourn them. But after that, no, he's released. He's released from being a brother, a dad, an uncle, a grandfather. His titles are released from that. And he can go on now. So all those things I think about now. And try and talk to people and bring them back too. So they can think the same. And I tell my daughter, relationship, it's work. And that's what it is. When you look at the Bible or our way, we say we come together in one mind. Well, that's what you do. You two people come together and you form that one mind and all that. You don't say, well, you're over here, you do this and you do that. No, you're together. You work together to do that life. And that's what that is.
All right, well, unless there's anything else, I think that's a good place to end it. Unless you have anything else to say.
No, well, I think I just covered it all what I
So.
needed to do or say, and that's what I do when I go out and speak and travel. Talk to other vets, young and old. We get our mind so caught up in the world that we forget the common sense of life. That's what I call it. When you look at it, it says, who says we have to be this way? Who says we got to do this? And that's what it is. I said, but we got to understand who we are too, as a people. As Oneida, as Iroquois. We got to look back and say, who are we? Well, the same thing with the Vietnamese. They're losing their culture. The Hmong, they're here. But they're, like they say, they're losing their culture too. You ask some kids in school, what are you? Well, I'm Swedish. Well, what do you do? I don't know. What kind of dances do you do? I don't know. That's a lost culture, and that's the way we could end up too, which, we're in that middle road. Because there's that division that we're going. You know, and it's hard to, like you say, we all said before, we lived in two worlds. And yeah, we do in a way, but where do we fit in? And what do we hang on to? There's more things here that we could be doing for our community instead of worrying about money. Because everything revolves around that casino. When we have a death here, I don't see people coming over anymore. You know, like they used to. You know, somebody passed away over here, there'd be people over there bringing food over to the people, taking care of them. You know, my brother passed, nobody stepped up, helped out. I did that by myself. You know, he lived in New Mexico, so his family was doing all that down there, and then come up here to put him to rest. But my nephews and everybody, they didn't come around. You know, my sisters, yeah, we cooked. I had a family, but when the community loses its people, they should be there, you know, to help with that fire. You know, I didn't have my time of mourning with my brother, because I had to watch the fire, and I had other things to do and take care of the family. So, yeah, we're losing it. But then, so, who are we then? That's what I think. And I think by the time I'm gone, I don't know, hopefully it's stronger. But then again, I don't know, the things I hear out there, and you know, young guys saying, oh, I'm a warrior. We don't even know what that is. Oh, go help that elder change their tire. Oh, I ain't doing that, I'm gonna get dirty. No. See, they're a little warrior that's 14 years old probably go over and help that elder change her tire than somebody that's 20 years old. You know, that's the thing I see out there now and here. Like, no, that's bad. That's not good. But anyway, that's it.